All righty, Vince. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Since 1 o'clock this afternoon, I've been ready for rapid fire, baby.
All right.
Let's go.
Here we go then. So I promise we're going to talk some receiver talk. I saw a question pop up about Deion Colzie. There's some other wide receiver kind of chatter going on. We're going to get into the bulk of the wide receivers in this. Marcus Freeman was asked about a lot of them today, including the health status of Jayden Thomas and Jaden Greathouse. What is going on with those guys coming out of the bye week?
I think they're going to be as close to 100% this week than they've been all year. And JT was probably a step below where he was 2 weeks ago. So Louisville, he was probably at a higher level in terms of how he felt than he was versus USC, which dictated a little bit of what we did with him. And Greathouse has continuously gotten better and better with his hamstring. So I think both of those guys will be as close to full go as you'll see all year. And that's a week-to-week basis, right? And we have to do things to try to prevent, obviously, soft tissue injuries from happening. And we'll continuously try to do that. But, you never know when you're in football.
So Jayden Thomas, Jaden Greathouse should be as close to healthy as they have been in a long time. How badly do the Irish need at least one of those guys to get going right now?
I mean, they need the depth, obviously. I mean, the depth has been a problem for the last, 3 games total? And so they need the depth, period. They need to get – I think – look, Jaden Greathouse was clearly one of Sam Hartman's favorite targets. So getting him back obviously is huge. But I think also, getting back JT might even be bigger because they just have completely ignored the outside receivers the last couple of games. And,
yes,
whether that's by design, whether that's by Sam Hartman just not having any confidence in who's been playing on the outside, whatever the case may be, having him back, I think, will be big because Sam Hartman will throw the ball to Jayden Thomas. I feel like I think we can all agree he was probably the best receiver in fall camp going into the season. And so probably has the most confidence in him. And so getting him back, I think, is huge because then that will be throwing to the outside receivers a little bit more. Jaden Greathouse was playing outside receiver in the last game, and he was not getting the ball, even though he was open. And so they just, again, whether by design or whether by Hartman, you got to hit those guys.
I think part of that, because you heard Marcus Freeman talking about where they were still from a health standpoint, even though they were playing, like Jaden Greathouse didn't practice very much that week leading up to USC or even Louisville after that hamstring injury. So I think that maybe there's, that connection with Sam Hartman maybe was lacking a little bit just because he didn't, he wasn't used to having him to throw to
being on the outside. And, I get
and in
that.
practice that week. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, when you look at the production of both of these guys, Greathouse had 12 catches for 166 yards in the first 5 games, and then he misses the Duke game, and then he's been back against Louisville and USC, hasn't had a catch in either one of them.
Yeah, limited capacity.
Yeah, exactly. And again, when you're looking at same with Jayden Thomas, the first, I think it was 4 games, he had at least 4 catches and at least 62 yards, or I think it was 4 of the first 5. It was like boom, boom. This guy was always out there producing. But again, just 3 catches for 40 yards over the last 4 games. Now, it's basically just because both of them have been hurt. And when you look at the overall consistency of the offense, they need someone on the outside to be a presence. And they know what they're going to get from Tyree and Faison, the 2 slot guys. And like you said, maybe you mix Greathouse in the slot. I don't know. That's going to take away from, those other 2 guys who have given you so much production and speed. Not that Faison has been, but what I'm saying with him. But they need someone on the outside to be a presence. Otherwise, it just compresses that much more of the field if you're not able to operate on all levels and stretch the perimeter as well.
Right. And Greathouse, I think, is going to hop between, inside, outside. I think he's your most versatile, receiver that you currently have as far as positional flexibility. And so, get him the football. Scheme your way to get him the football. Scheme your way to get Chris Tyree the football. You've got to be able to get the football to these guys, and you've got to be able to spread it around.
Concur. Dion Colzie hasn't played since Central Michigan. He had that knee scope. And here's Marcus Freeman on Deion Colzie today.
Deion, he will probably start some individual this week. You know, he's probably a little bit behind of where we thought he would be with the scope on his knee. But I still see him coming back here in the next couple of weeks and being available.
Okay.
So short and sweet on Deion Colzie. Start some individual drills this week. So you can pretty much rule out this week's game against Pittsburgh. I would put Clemson probably at 50-50 at best.
Maybe after the next bye week, I would say is when you're going to look at Deion Colzie maybe being
right.
Somebody that can help him out. I think that's probably more legit than anything else, because then you're looking at, obviously you've got this week with Pitt, you've got the following week with Clemson, and then you've got the bye, right? And so you'd be looking at November 18th home game against Wake Forest. Maybe a good kind of circle date, I think, because then you've got 2 weeks in a row of him playing, and then you've got all of the wait between the bowl game. So based on that response, I would say that that's probably what I would be looking at.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And then the final guy to talk about, Tobias Merriweather.
Oh, boy.
As far as Tobias, we talked about this today in our meeting. We got to try and find ways to get him the ball and take some shots down the field with Tobias, with his body, his length, his speed. We got to try to continuously find ways to truly take shots and not look for just the wide open perfect play. And that's what at times we can end up doing. We got to take shots and believe that he'll make a play on 50-50 ball, and we have full faith that he will.
All right. They've got full faith that he will. Vince, what's your confidence that he can actually become a major factor here down the stretch?
Like a 3, 4. Yeah. I mean, I still think he's got all the talent in the world, and I just don't think it's going to be this year. I mean, and nobody's going to want to hear us say in the offseason that Tobias Merriweather is getting ready to take that next step and all of that. But the reality of the situation is he's a true sophomore, and he's a redshirt freshman. And so, he didn't pop this year like we all thought that he would. And some of that's a confidence issue, whatever. I still think he can have a very successful Notre Dame career. It's just not going to be this year. And so my confidence level this year is not very high. My confidence level in him having a really good Notre Dame career is still up in like the 7-ish range, 7.5. Like, he's so young, and people they're already over him. They're already over him, right? But he's got so many gifts as far as his athletic ability and all of that. I mean, if he just nose to the grindstone in the offseason, really gets after it, that kind of a thing, I still think he could be really, really good at Notre Dame. So I'm not banking on it being this year, though, at this point.
I know, because the problem is, listening to Marcus Freeman, they're talking about we need to throw him 50-50 balls. Well, you got a 50-50 ball against Duke, and look what happened there.
Sure.
Very catchable ball. Not saying it was easy, but I mean, he was looking back at the ball. He saw it coming at him, and it bounced off him. And
right,
just too many instances of simple things like that. And at some point, you heard Freeman say, well, we can't just throw him when he's wide open. Well, I think the quarterback has to trust that that's the guy who's going to go get the ball if he throws him a 50-50 ball. And if you're going to do that, again, the quarterback has to have confidence that he's going to catch it. And unfortunately, Tobias hasn't shown that he's the guy who's going to get that. I think he needs to get in the weight room more this offseason. And I'm not saying that he hasn't, but, get in the weight room and just make sure that mentally he's focused the way that he needs to be. And, just go to work on attacking the football this offseason. That's, I think, what it comes down to. Have basically an attack mentality, because you're absolutely right. The skill, the talent, everything is there.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that he needs to put it together. But where you are right now, there's a track record of what you have put on film and what the quarterback sees from you day in and day out in practice. He's got to have confidence that you're going to be the guy who's going to get it. Aaron Rodgers, I think we've talked about this before.
Oh, sure.
He would test his receivers with these kind of things early on in training camp. And if they showed that they couldn't be, counted on to make those plays, he wasn't going to come back to you very often.
Well, and here's the other thing that I think could work out very well in Tobias's favor. Sam Hartman's going to be gone after this year. And Sam Hartman may not have any faith in Tobias Merriweather. Okay, I get it. He hasn't really given him a reason to have the faith, right? But he's going to be gone. Regardless, there's going to be a new quarterback behind center for Notre Dame next year.
Yeah.
And a new guy for Tobias to get chemistry with, right? And so even if he's lost that with Sam Hartman, which is definitely a possibility, he's got an opportunity with whoever's next.
Yep. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. There was a question, or Octavia. Ooh. Do you guys know the details on why Caleb Smith retired? Because I think he would have been very helpful in our receiver room this season and surely made an impact for the struggling offense. I think he retired because the writing was on the wall. He saw these young guys getting all the reps in front of him in the spring when he showed up, and he's like, this isn't going to be what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. I mean, he took the injury, retirement kind of route. But it was very clear that he was pretty far down on the depth chart and wasn't going to get the playing time that he anticipated when he transferred to Notre Dame. And, yes, with the injuries and things like that, would he have been a guy that they probably would have been able to go to and lean on if he would have stuck around? Yeah, probably, but I don't think he would have been very happy. And if you're not happy, is that a guy that you really want to be able to lean on? You know what I mean? And so if he could have embraced his role, whatever role that would have been, then, maybe you're not putting Jordan Faison on scholarship. Maybe you're going to, Caleb and all of that. But, yeah, it was a depth chart issue from what we know.
David wants to know how much of Merriweather's productivity is on Chancey Stuckey, his position coach.
I mean, some of it. I mean, you can't not blame the coach, right? I mean, he has to be responsible because we would give him a lot of credit if he was producing. So it's a two-way street. But it's not just Chancey Stuckey. I think there's a confidence issue there right now with him as well. And so that's going to have to be worked out. It's going to have to be worked out. And Chancey Stuckey is going to be a big part of whether it does or it doesn't get worked out.
Yeah. And again, you look at the drop balls, there have been more than one, and those aren't on the position coach. That's on
that's true.
Ball hits you in the hand. You got to get. Now, he's not the only guy who's had drop balls. I'm not trying to but he's the guy who's got more than anyone else on the team at this point. And again, I think it speaks a lot when you go into that game against Duke, when you've got 3 scholarship receivers playing in that game, and the guy who is arguably the most athletically gifted of any receiver on your roster comes out of that with no catch, with more drop balls than he does catches in that game. He had 0 catches in that game against Duke.
Yeah, right.
It's just what it is.
Yeah, those are all facts.
Yep. Octavio, scale of 1 to 10. How worried are we in Notre Dame finishing off the season healthy with no Coach Balis?
I mean, most of the work for staying healthy, a lot of it is done during the preseason and in the off season and things of that nature. Now, there's recovery and a lot of that goes on, obviously, during the regular season. But that plan had already been put in place, and they are just carrying out the plan that was already there. So on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as Balis specifically being involved, I'm like a 9, an 8, or a 9. I just don't think you're going to see the non-Balis effect, like him not being there more in the offseason and then moving into next year. I don't think you're going to see it as much this year.
Because for right now, they're basically
healthy.
Well, they're healthy with the exception of the hamstrings,
right?
But and that is a little bit of a concern. The fact that you had
agree.
So many receivers in the middle of the season, all of a sudden getting hamstring injuries. But you're also the guy who's running things is essentially running Balis's his blueprint.
Right, because they didn't have time to completely revamp.
It's not like he put together his whole strength and conditioning program. Right. They're doing things that Balis was doing.
Correct. So yeah, and they haven't had any season-ending type injuries, that I can remember that off the top of my head, right? So
Colzie and Gobira, right? Those are the 2 most serious things so far.
And the Colzie thing, I think, was an issue prior, wasn't it? Wasn't it an issue prior to the season? And he was kind of trying to play through it, and they're just like, nope, we're not going to do it. I don't remember exactly the timeline.
I'm not remembering that.
Okay.
I mean, he was injured last year, but I think I think this year it kind of came out of the blue to some extent, but
Gotcha.
I'm not sure. Hold My Shillelagh asks, who's the pick to replace Miami on the schedule next year? I think it's Louisville, from what I understand. I think the ACC has put Louisville on Notre Dame's schedule.
Well, they still only have 11 games, though. And
Do they?
Louisville's one of them. So
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, they're going to have to add somebody at some point. It's not going to be a marquee game that anybody wants. I'm just telling you that right now. I just don't see that being the case because you're looking at a middle, either here's the buys right now with an 11-game schedule. The first weekend of October is open right now. And right now that's a great place for a buy because that's 4 games into the season. Or 5 games into the season. The next buy after that is the first weekend of November, which might be a spot where you hit somebody. But again, it's only 2 games, I guess. 3 games, I'm sorry. And then the next buy after that's the one right before they go to USC. So those are your 3 spots.
I've said this before. It shouldn't be up to Notre Dame to have to figure this out. The ACC,
That's fair.
the ACC, some combination of Miami and the ACC needs to pay out whoever's too many on their schedule, on Miami's schedule, and make Miami play this game.
Yeah.
Like they should have to eat some money on this thing because it's a non-conference game. Now, granted, Notre Dame is technically a non-conference game, but Notre Dame is still part of the ACC agreement.
They're supposed to play 5 ACC teams, and they've got 4 on the schedule right now.
Miami should be made to figure this thing out and make the thing whole. It shouldn't be on Notre Dame to have to figure this out. And if Notre Dame, and at the very least, I thought I had heard that Louisville was taking their place, but I don't know. It's like I haven't, to be honest, once the season got started, it's not something that I've spent that much time thinking about. It's more an off-season subject than anything. But
because right now their ACC games that they've got September 28th against Louisville. They've got Georgia Tech on the 19th of October. They've got Florida State on November 9th, and they've got Virginia on November 16th. So they've got 4 ACC teams right now. So they technically need one more in order to get to their 5. So it's going to be an ACC team, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Octavia followed up about Caleb Smith saying, I guess what I'm asking is was he really that bad? I mean, he did so much at Virginia Tech, and Tobias really hasn't done anything here for Notre Dame. Could he have really been? I mean, it's on him. He left the program.
Yeah.
He could have stayed. He could have stayed and maybe had some opportunities at this point. But he was definitely, like, when we were out there in spring practice, he was so far under the radar that I couldn't really give you a great evaation. But again,
we never saw him do anything because he was out. Remember, he was out in the spring.
That's what I'm saying.
And again, he could have stuck around.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He decided not to. So that's kind of on him. Yeah. Could he have contributed?
Totally. Yes. On him. He made the decision to leave. He had a scholarship here to stay here and play. He had an opportunity. So
right. Yeah.
Fill in the blank. Sam Hartman shaving his beard is blank.
Oh, way bigger news than it should be. I saw, what was it? It was on Sports Center, I want to say. Like,
was
they were
it really?
talking. I thought that's where I saw it. It was something about it was on Game Day. It was the You Had One Job segment. And apparently he had one job and he shaved it into a mustache, and now it's completely gone. He's just clean shaven. I think that people are making way too big of a deal out of a guy who just decided to shave one day.
Yeah. Carmel says useless. Why even discuss this? Come on, man.
Come on, because it's rapid fire, baby, and nothing's off limits. That's why.
He definitely looks babyface. I was wondering, I don't follow him on social media, but did his NIL deal, with the shaving place, did it have anything to do? I found it interesting that he initially just shaved the beard and he kept the mustache, at least for a couple days. And then he was at an autograph signing yesterday at the bookstore, and someone tweeted a picture of himself with him, and it was all gone. It was babyface Sam. Maybe he thinks it's like a fresh start for him. Get a kickstart this final third of the season. I don't know.
Hey, maybe just going to shave off all the bad juju. Bye-bye.
That's right. Anthony does bring up a good point that I totally forgot about. Stanford is part of the ACC next year.
Is that official?
Yeah, they're part of the ACC next year.
Okay, I remember Jack wanted it and all these things. I just didn't know if they actually made it official.
Oh yeah, they've been approved. Stanford and Cal are part of the ACC as of next year.
Then they got their 5, so Notre Dame can go get whoever they want as long as they fit in the schedule.
True, very true. And supposedly, remember, like we talked about this, that supposedly Stanford is going to be, even though they're part of the ACC arrangement, they're going to stay on Notre Dame's schedule, I guess, every year. So you get a permanent. I mean, that really, it's like, that's going to require some doctoring of the future schedules because, you know, there was already like schedules for the next 13 years or something like that.
No, that's true. I didn't think about that.
Notre Dame. So, like, is that going to change or is Notre Dame just going to get 6 ACC opponents every year as a result?
Man, you know, it'd be a fun, and I realize this is not my job, but, you know, you print out Notre Dame's schedule, you figure out where their 3 buys are right now, and then you just go through everybody else's future schedule, see who's open.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know who needs some opponents probably next year? Oregon State and Washington State.
Yeah, it's probably true. That's a really good point.
But imagine they'll have a lot of open dates next year.
That's a really good point because most teams are going to have all 12 games saddled up. And, you know, you're going to be asking them to get rid of one. Like, there's just not going to be many teams with an open date.
Right, right. So Brian Kelly down at LSU got his 300th career win Saturday. And afterwards, this is what he told his team.
Tell you that I haven't had more fun coaching than I've had being here with you guys. And it's because you care to get better every day. And all I care about is player development and developing players. And if you care about that, that's what I do this for. I don't do it for the wins, okay? I don't. That's not why I'm in this. I do this because I want to see you guys get better every day. I've watched the defense get better every day. I've watched players grow and get better every single day in every facet across the board. I've watched the quarterback get better and better from last year to this year to one of the best quarterbacks in the country. I've watched every player over the last year develop and get better. And it's been fun to watch, and that's why I do this. I don't do it for anyone else. I do it to watch you guys grow, and that's why I've had more fun being here than I've ever had in my career. So thank you very much.
It's the only reason he does it, Vince. He does it. He's the most selfless coach in America. Brian Kelly, the most selfless coach in America. What did you think of all that?
First of all, it sounded like he was in a job interview at first. Like, that is not a speech that you give to your team. Like, because he's talking to the players. Yeah. At the end, they're like,
it's team like, okay. Great coach.
Like, he didn't even say the quarterback's name. Mm-hmm. Like, that's your team. And when you're talking to your team, you talk about your kids by their first names. Okay. Like, you know, I love seeing what, you know, Jordan has done, and I love seeing what Timmy has done, and, you know, whatever. Like, it sounded like he was in a job interview. I'm in it for the kids, and I'm not in it for myself, but where do I sign this $100 million contract? Just, like, that was just so typical Brian Kelly, and that is not how you accept the game ball or whatever it was that they gave him for his 300th win. Like, it's just so typical. That's not how this goes.
I'm here for you guys. I'm here for you.
God, I mean, you want to talk about politician? Like, that was a political speech.
The most fun he's ever had coaching anywhere. You know, because going to a couple college football playoffs and a BCS championship game, I guess, wasn't fun enough for him. I don't know, man. Oh, it is
just bad.
Father David watches this show to see us grow.
That's well played. That is well played. Oh my God, that was so, like, there's so many different directions you could have gone with that little speech. And
I just love, you know, again, like the
Yeah.
The players are just like, all right.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Because they know that he's full of crap.
Another load of BS.
Yeah.
All right.
They
Thanks,
know he's
BK.
that's not what he's there for. He's not
Yep.
there to see the good players get better.
Yep. So Dabo Swinney made these comments last week. If you don't go undefeated, people say you're losers, that you're terrible. It's such a terrible mindset. Honestly, maybe we need to lose a few games and lighten up the bandwagon. Sometimes the bandwagon can get a little too full. That's the one good thing about going through a little so-called adversity. You really find out who's with you and who's not. That was last week. And of course, he lost to Miami this weekend. Seems like maybe he really went all in, really took his strategy to heart.
I mean, I see what he's saying. I get where he's coming from, obviously, because he set the bar really high at Clemson, right? He has set the bar extremely high by winning national championships and doing all the things that he's done down at Clemson. And now he's at a place where if they lose a few games, it is the end of the world if you're a Clemson fan. And you do suck in their eyes because they're used to the bar being way up here, not here, right? And so I almost want to say, like, welcome to the mountaintop, dude. Like, what do you think we deal with at Notre Dame all the time? I had people texting me in the middle of the USC game as they're dominating USC. They're like, who cares? Season's over. Doesn't matter what they do now. Like, okay, I guess. Like, yes, you're right. College football playoff is out the window. But can we at least appreciate what's happening right now? I mean, and I'm not saying you lower the bar. I'm not saying that at all. But I can at least appreciate where he's coming from. I get where he's coming from.
I mean, you just can't spit at the fans who are supporting your program.
Absolutely. That too.
You've raised the bar on this thing. You have raised the bar. And congratulations for raising the bar on the thing.
Sure.
But you can't get mad when people are going to hold you to that and expect that standard when that's what you've done. And, let's be honest. If you want to spin this whole thing back around, it's all on Dabo, because like Dabo is somewhere in between, like our age range. He is not Nick Saban's age. He is not Bill Belichick's age. I'm trying to think, he's not even Brian Kelly's age. He's younger than all of those guys. But like he is stuck in an era of college football that was, not that long ago when he started this whole thing out, pre-transfer portal, pre-NIL. And like, he doesn't want to embrace any of this. So the reason he's in the situation that he is in right now is because he is not adapting to the college football world around him. And then he's throwing jabs back at his own fan base as a result. So all you're doing is doubling down, and the fans are just going to double down on whatever acrimony they feel about you. And when you're spitting it back, I mean, it's a lot of Brian Kelly type stuff coming out of his mouth right now. And like, could you imagine?
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Could you imagine, like, if Brian Kelly had said something like that?
We'd be hammering him.
Yeah. Or name your coach. Yeah, they would all be getting hammered for this, especially a guy like Brian Kelly.
I will say it's like this is kind of a how do I want to say this? Like don't look a gift horse in the mouth sort of thing. Like you this is on you. Like you set the bar where it is with all the success that you've had. Now don't complain about the pressure. You know what I mean? Like you turn the pressure up. You don't get to complain about it now. I mean, I see where you're coming from, but like, come on, man. Like if this was the Clemson that you took over, then yeah, you can be mad that people get mad at you for one loss or two losses or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, this isn't the Clemson that you took over.
That's right.
You had two generational quarterbacks that took you to the mountaintop, and you're kind of not fulfilling what you did. Like, look yourself in the mirror, man.
Exactly. Now we get to have fun with another coach. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Lincoln Riley and USC did not make any players available to the media after their loss to Utah Saturday night.
Are you serious? Really? Okay.
Totally.
It's childish is what it is. It's weak. It is cowardice. You are being paid to answer questions about your performance, period. That is what you get paid to do. And there was just no players. Like did he go to
He did the press conference.
Okay.
No
Okay.
players. No
Okay.
players. Caleb Williams and all of his, Wendy's commercials and NIL had a bad game for a second game in a row, and now he can't talk to the media.
Face
afterwards.
the music, man. Like, we all got to know what it feels like to be in those size 12s. Like, you need to come let us know, because you said it was tough, and I think we deserve an explanation. And you're getting paid millions of dollars to be the quarterback at USC. And so, I'm sorry. Answering questions comes with the territory. I would almost be okay if they weren't getting paid. Almost. I still would want them out there.
Yeah.
But now that they're getting paid too, no,
well, and that's
it's
the
your
thing.
job.
Like,
it's your job.
There's all this talk about, is Lincoln Riley going to take an NFL job? And he's just such an interesting case, because, maybe it was easier to control all this stuff in Norman, Oklahoma than it is in Los Angeles, but
yeah,
he, it was earlier this season. They banned a reporter from covering the team for a couple of weeks, because the reporter, it was that like post-practice media thing, and the reporter was standing close to a couple of USC players and heard them talking about, like the one player was kind of nervous, I think, about what he was going to say and stuff like that. And so the other guy is kind of reassuring him and coaching him up. And so this reporter reported that, because he's standing there close to the players. But because the media session hadn't officially started, they banned, they took this guy's credential for a couple of weeks, wouldn't let him cover practice or games. It was funny, because I think it was like Arizona State, where there was a road game. They went ahead and credentialed the guy anyway. But Lincoln, so this is where Lincoln Riley is. It's like, we're going to ban reporters because I want to control the message. And now we have a couple bad games in a row, and no players are going to go out and talk to the media. It's like, it's one thing if you're just going to totally take all the bullets for your team and all that kind of stuff, but these are all big boys. Like you said, there's so many of these guys getting paid now. You got to make somebody available.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that he did this.
Yep. You can't have it. You can't have it one way. It's not a one-way street. You got it.
Yep.
It's a two-way street, man. Like, you have to explain why you didn't do well.
Yep. And you go to the NFL, like, those players are all required.
They have
speak
to.
the media. Yeah.
Or they get fined.
That's exactly right. They get fined if they don't speak with the media.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, like Notre Dame has lost some games, but they still made players available.
Yeah, I don't remember ever there being a time when now it may have just been the quarterback,
right?
Or
the list is typically a little bit smaller after a
Yeah.
loss, but they're still making people available. That's right.
Notre Dame had 2 really bad losses this year, or one very disappointing loss because of the way it went down, and then one bad loss, right?
Yeah.
And they were all out there, facing the music, because that's what adults do.
Yep. That's part of the whole learning process.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Accountability. It's supposed to be part of it.
Thank you. Accountability. Yes.
Who knew? All right. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Vince, enjoyed it as always. I'll let you have a break after your roughly 5.5 hours of IB programming today.
It's awesome. It's awesome. My wife's making some homemade chicken and rice, so I'm super excited about dinner. So I'm ready, man. I'm fired up. It's been a great day. I think I got it back to the real life.
Stymie's just getting here. Did hit the like button. Well, thank you, Stymie. You're gonna have to start the show from the beginning and jump in and watch it until the end. We will be here, of course, tomorrow. Mentioned earlier, if you didn't see it, did the interview with Notre Dame women's basketball coach Niele Livey on Friday. So that is up on both the YouTube and the podcast platforms for anyone who wants to get a little bit of that before the season starts. Exhibition game 1 week from tonight.
Wow.
And then 2 weeks from today, the opener in Paris, France against South Carolina. It's going to be exciting.
That's a big time game too.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
That'll
big
be
time opponent.
That'll be a lot of fun. What I know this is way in the future, but like, what time is that game at? Is it a night game in the States?
I believe it is like 1 PM in the States, 7 o'clock at night in Paris.
Gotcha.
If I remember right.
And then obviously weekend, I take it.
No, it's on a Monday.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to be God, come on.
The Monday after the Clemson game.
Okay.
So 2 days after the Clemson football game, Notre Dame, South Carolina women's basketball opens up the season.
I did record it. I have to record it.
Well, you do the show a little bit quicker, then you get in.
Man,
You watch the basketball game.
I'm going to have to.
All right, hit that like button before you leave. And, of course, subscribe, rate, and review on your podcast platforms. And we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.